I've been working on my next super comfortable con floor cosplay, Ellen Ripley from Aliens, and I'm ready to spend some time on aesthetics. Specifically her space baddie look. I love makeup and I'm a sucker for good packaging. So to capture Ellen Ripley's space baddie look, I think I want to curate a palette and a kit so that I don't miss a detail whenever I wear this cosplay. Okay, so I've never done anything like this before, and I'm a little nervous to get started. I'm gonna do some out loud thinking just so I know what I'm gonna do. And I think I need to start with sourcing my makeup. That way I can decide on what I want, how many of what I want, and that's a great launch pad for designing the palette that holds all that. I think I'll go back into my own collection of makeup and look for some inspiration, like the things that I reach for every day, and just take a gander at the layout, the design, and the elements that I really like. Then I can take it all to the computer, do some patterning. I think this is a great project to use my laser cutter on because I can just take the pattern directly to the laser cutter and use some draft board that I have in my stash. And then if I like that mock-up, I can move on to maybe like a nicer material. I'd love to source a really beautiful, shimmery, alien-esque inspired acrylic. I think that could be a really great fit for this. And then after putting all that together, I want to make sure it's protected. So I also want to pattern and build a sleeve for the palette, maybe with some pockets for some makeup brushes and some type of like padding so that the palette is well protected when I put it into my luggage. I think that's the way I'm going to start. Of course, I have goals for this project, even though it's new to me and terrifying to work on. And the first goal, if it wasn't already obvious, is just to spend some time thinking. I need to be purposeful in what I'm doing and how I'm making and creating and building, because ultimately I want to be able to use this thing at the end of this journey. So I want to spend some time thinking about stuff, about the layout of the palette, about how I want to make the sleeve, about how all these elements are going to come together so that I have a finished piece that I'm really proud of and actually employ. My second goal is along the same lines, which is to measure twice and cut once, because my final materials are not finite. I've got lots of like draft board and paper and tape for mocking up, and I always keep that on hand because cheap and easy to use, but the final like really pretty materials, the acrylic that I think I want to use, the fabric that I need to maybe find in my stash, are finite resources. So I'm gonna try to be a little less wasteful and just measure twice and cut once. And then my third goal is a continuation of the tornado of challenge that I have faced in the past projects, which is to try not to sweat the small stuff. But I've been thinking about this and I want to reframe it just a little bit, because like maybe perseveration is something I struggle with, and just telling myself don't perseverate isn't a good way to not perseverate. So I'm gonna reframe it to find joy in the journey of making. That's what I want to do. It's not about the end product, although I do want to have a nice end product, but it's about this thing that I really love, which is making weird stuff. So I think if I reframe it that way, then just find joy in that journey, maybe I'll spend a little bit less time sweating the small stuff. I have no idea where to start with this project. I've never done anything like this before. But I have an engineering friend who once told me that when they start new projects, they look at their inspiration and then they think about their constraints. So that's what I'm going to begin with. And I went ahead and grabbed one of my most recent palette purchases, and I love this makeup palette. I love it because it's a beautiful product, but also because when you open it up, there's a big mirror on one side, there's a little bit of weight to it, and the sizing of it, it's not gonna get lost in your luggage anytime soon. All the pans are really clearly laid out, and they're even magnetic, so if I wanted to take them out and rearrange them, I could. They just pop out and move around. There's a There's a paper hinge here that I think is really clever for opening and closing, and if you listen carefully, there's a little magnetic latch so that when you close it, it sticks and it doesn't pop open again. Beautiful product, beautiful packaging. I think that's where I want to draw my inspiration, is from makeup palettes that already exist, that exist really effectively. I think we'll probably need to start then with the constraints, thinking about the pans and the pan sizes and where I want to source my makeup. I'll probably go to ColourPop. I like the company, it's made in the United States, it's cruelty-free, which is really important to me, and affordable, and I like the quality of the product. So I'd like to buy a bronzer and a blush and a highlighter and then a couple of different eyeshadow pans. And once I have those, I can start to take those constraints, the actual sizes, and arrange and organize them into some type of meaningful palette. I'll probably be using Inkscape to do this, to create a pattern, just because that's the software I'm familiar with, and then take that to the laser cutter to make a mock-up. Oh my gosh, we have a mock-up. I cannot believe this. I am so excited. This is crazy. This is just draft board that I keep on hand for prototyping and mock-ups, exactly like this, but gosh. It's really satisfying. I was already playing around with it a little bit, and the big pants that I got from ColourPop fit perfect into the wells, but somewhere along the line, I totally biffed the measurements on the small pans. I don't know, it's off by like 3 or 4 millimeters. So I definitely need to fix that. I was even playing around with some adhesive mirror to see what it's gonna take to cut it out without any distortion and then get it into the actual palette itself. And so far, so good. The hinges fit okay. I think it's just a solution I'm gonna have to stick with, and when I consider the goals that I've set about just enjoying the process, I think it's perfect. So I suspect with the final material, this gap is gonna go away. I think I'll probably add just one more sheet of material here to bump up the pans a little bit higher, and that will fix that problem right up. So overall, I'm really happy with how this mock-up turned out. I need to head back to the computer to make my revisions on it, and then we can get printing on the expensive material and get it made out of the actual acrylic. I ordered my acrylic from custommadebetter.com. I've seen some makers use their products before, so I was interested in trying them out. They had a great selection and good customer service, and a couple days later, my acrylic arrived in the mail. So I just followed the process that I used to make the mock-up, and here's the final result. I'm about ready to transfer my makeup pans into the palette, which I'm super stoked about, but there was a casualty in my depotting, and I'm trying to decide if I want to try to repack it, which is a thing, or if I want to order or search for a new one in my makeup collection. Danny has feelings about it. I don't know that I agree. So right now I'm just going to move these into here because they're kind of delicate out without that protective acrylic around them while I think about what I want to do with that one. Oh my gosh, I made a makeup palette. It's done, it's assembled, the pans have been glued in, they're drying right now. I was even able to repair that broken bronzer just with some alcohol and repressing. And overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I really enjoyed the experience of figuring this out, and I already know next time I do this, what I'm gonna do differently. But all in all, I mean, oh my gosh, I made my own makeup palette. That's amazing. I'm so excited. So the next step is to think about how I want to transport this safely. And I have a vision of a sleeve, kind of like imagine a book sleeve where you would slide your book into it, except it would have pockets in the front to hold brushes and a way to secure this so that it doesn't get jostled around and slip out, and maybe also some padding to protect it. I think our next step is going to be to get out some paper and a ruler and start to mock something up, because now that I have this done, I can size a pattern to it really precisely, and then we can start to do some sewing. Okay, the palette sleeve pattern is mocked up. I just made it out of some printer paper that I had on hand, and I even put the palette in there just to make sure everything fits okay. There is space in the front, some pockets where I can put makeup brushes and a place for a button and a buttonhole. This tab is meant to keep the palette in the sleeve so it doesn't slide out when it's in my luggage. And I'm really happy with this overall. I do think I need to maybe make it just a little bit wider in case that sleeve with all its layers gets a little bit thick. And I do need to remember that when working with paper, there's no seam allowance on all of these. So when I make my cut list for this, I need to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to every single edge of this, to all the dimensions. But I'm excited to get started on this. I was feeling a little bit uninspired when I was looking through my fabric stash, and then I found some really pretty treasures that I had bought and forgot, I guess. I've got this really pretty navy blue satin. Not a lot of it left. It might be taffeta, I'm not sure. There's not a ton left, but I think it's gonna make a really, really pretty lining, and then I can cut some strips and use it as a bias tape finish for some of the edges. And then I found this gorgeous iridescent, kind of scaly, kind of spacey, kind of alien-y fabric. And I'm excited to use this on the outside. I think it's really gonna like make the sleeve pop. It is slightly stretchy because it's a knit. So I'm gonna take some time to line every piece with a really lightweight fusible interfacing. If I'm very careful with my iron, use a really low temperature setting and never ever put the heat on the shiny side, I might be able to give this fabric a little more stiffness so that the sleeve can be more protective of the makeup palette. But that's gonna be kind of touch and go. We'll see how that plays out. So we've got the pattern, need to make that into a cut list. I've got the fabric. I think now it's just time to actually cut and sew the thing. I just finished sewing as much as I can do for the makeup sleeve, and I am so happy with how it turned out. Here it is. Here's my makeup palette. You can see that the palette fits right into the makeup sleeve. It's awesome. There's a tab that still needs a button, and I need to cut out the buttonhole, and I just feel like I need to source something really cool. So I haven't done that quite yet. The brushes are already in the pockets in the front. I mean, I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. I am so glad that I was a little bit more patient with myself to find the right fabric in my stash for this, because I think it makes all the difference having this iridescent kind of scaly, and then you open it up and you can take out this cool palette that is filled with everything I need really to make Ellen Ripley's cosplay look. I'm so excited with this. It's pretty close to being done, but it's not quite there yet. I still have a couple of pins that I need to attend to, and then, like I said, finding that button to just get everything right. But I think the next time we check in, it will probably be for the final reveal. This was such a fun project. I am so glad that I decided to give this a try. It was really just an experience that was joyful. And if you make stuff, you know how rare those moments can be. So I'm really, really grateful that I took a chance on this. Some things worked really well, some things have room for improvement, but I liked this enough that I think I'm going to continue making custom makeup palettes and sleeves for every cosplay I ever make until the foreseeable future / end of time. Speaking of which, let's talk about my goals because I am actually really happy with how all this turned out. So I don't know if you remember, but my first goal was to think about what I was making so that the end product was actually something really useful and I could travel with it. And I believe 5 out of 5 Danny Beans on this. I was really intentional and purposeful in what I chose to make and how I chose to make it. For example, the makeup pans that I selected, I picked those colors and shades and hues to be able to make Ellen Ripley's space baddie look, but also to do some weathering, to do some contouring, to add some special effects, and I'm really, really happy with how those all came out. I'm also really happy with the source of the makeup. ColourPop makes a great product, and I love that it's all together in one place so that I can take it onto the con floor or just into the, in my suitcase. I will use this, and that was what I set out to do. My second goal was to measure twice and cut once. And I don't know that I've explicitly said this, but my process is typically to make a mock-up, to make a practice, which I don't always show on camera, and then to make the final thing. And if I am building a competitive cosplay, sometimes I practice 3 or 4 times because I want to get better, but also because that's like where I find joy is in making stuff and figuring it out. The engineering part of it makes me really, really happy. Frustrated too, but mostly happy. So this measure twice, cut once, about being purposeful with the materials I use and really thoughtful in how I mock it up the first time and make my practice, I think I did a pretty good job. I accomplished what I set out to do. So 4 out of 5 Danny Beans. And my third goal, don't sweat the small stuff. I set out reframing this. So rather than don't sweat the small stuff, which I will always sweat the small stuff, it's how I am designed and programmed. Robot Christy is always going to be a detail-oriented person. Instead, I set out to find joy in the process. And I definitely did. This was really joyful. This was so much fun that I want to do it again. Am I going to do it better the next time? Yeah, I learned some really important things. For example, E6000 is not the adhesive to use when laminating acrylic sheets together. It worked at first, but now as it's drying, it's forming little air pockets, which isn't a big deal if you're using opaque acrylic, but I have a transparent acrylic, so you can see all those little pockets forming. I'm playing it off as intentional pattern, but between you and me, if you know, you know. I'm not gonna perseverate on it. I think I did better, honestly. 3.5 out of 5 Danny Beans. I had a lot of fun making it. I wanna do this again. I can do it better next time, and I know where all the stuff is and how to get it to me and how to assemble it, so I'm gonna do that. This was a really, really fun project. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.